what's up? This is Karina.
And I'm Pebbles.
And this is Divine Connections. Today's episode is sponsored by Belmonte Media,
Soul Supply Company, and Pebbles Tattoos.
And today on our episode, we will be introducing...
Hey, what's up? Leo from Northeast LA. I've been fighting fire for, what do you think, 13, 14 years?
Oh, okay. So today we're going to be introducing Leo, and he is a firefighter. So first, Leo, we want to ask you, like, where did your parents come from? Like, where are they from?
So, like I said, I'm out of Northeast LA. My parents are the same. Well,
so they're, like, from the USA? Like, they were born here?
One, I guess.
American?
So my mom's actually out from Texas and then moved out towards Legion Valley. So raised out there. My dad's actually born in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Migrated from Europe out here to the U.S. and then landed in Atwater.
Oh, okay. So that's where you met your mom?
Well, I met my mom was when she gave birth to me.
Oh,
but I mean,
yes.
I assume so.
I met my mom, the day I was born. Yeah, okay, so your mom and dad met, and then they had you, and then how did that go? What was your childhood like?
So childhood was good, I would say, for the most part. I mean, I'm one of 11 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would say.
Are you the middle?
So your mom's the breeder?
I'm actually second to the last.
Oh, wow.
So my mom total 6 kids. My dad had 11. Don't ask that question. I don't know how that went about. But anyways, second to the last. Childhood was good for the most part. My parents were separated. Single mom household. Raised 4 boys back to back, so you can imagine how that is in the household. And then my pops, he was like a real goofy type, but real solid, strict, scary man. He was like 5'4", I think. But anyways, he actually got busted when I was 8, and it's 26 years now, and he's still inside.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. So you say you had a pretty normal childhood with your mom?
For the most part, I mean, loving family. She did the best she could. I was a problem child. Like the whole diagnosis, ADHD, you'll probably tell soon because I'm going to be moving a lot. But, yeah, she did the whole nurturing thing. I can't complain.
When were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Good question. I will not remember.
Oh, okay. So your mom had you diagnosed and everything?
Yeah, when I was young, but I still use that as an excuse as a grown man for my outlandish behavior.
But at least you're honest about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your honesty. So tell me, what inspired you to be a firefighter? Like, when did that come about?
Okay, so before I get into that question, I don't really use the term firefighter because when you hear the word firefighter, right, you think of the red trucks, which that's their actual PD, their description of their job. We are technically forestry technicians. And
Forest technicians?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I fight fire working for the federal government, and they have us under a different grade series and a different job description. So it's a forestry technician, but I'm actually I could be wrong on the numbers right now because it goes back and forth due to staffing reasons. I won't go into all of that, but I'm actually on a type 1 interagency hotshot crew. So I'm actually considered a hotshot, not really firefighter. So when you hear the term firefighter, it feels like it's not us. Because most of our responses are either on federal land. We do assist the city or when it's called when needed, or we also do a lot of the state responses, but it's more of national resources. So like we get responding from California, which my home base is, we call it South Ops, here in Southern California, but we're dispatched all across the United States. And then there is opportunities. I have not got one yet, but we've sent folks to Australia, other countries,
wow.
Canada. Yeah.
So when did you start doing that?
I'd say I started. So I came home in 2011. I got forced into a program. I'd say January-ish, like 2012, and.
When you say came home, like you were.
So I was busted. I did 3 years. I never been to fire camp. I had no desire to be a fireman. Kind of alluding to the last question is like what inspired me, or I didn't really care for that. Like how I was raised and as far as where I grew up is, if you heard like, oh, you're gonna be a fireman, like it was something that wasn't really like considered a realistic career goal, and it was like fireman, like might as well be a cop. You know what I mean? So it's like that wasn't the goal right there. So I was forced into it. My PO actually forced me to do a program, and I was like, I don't want to do this, but I tried to create a paper trail to act like I was doing something, and I got forced into it. Fortunately, I was in shape, coming home for 3 years, and like it was no different. Push-ups, sit-ups, go for a run, go for hikes, and doing that program, kind of got stuck in there and just went with it.
Oh, because so this kind of just stumbled upon in your life, like it wasn't something that was intentional. In other words.
No, not at all. Like I said, it was no desire. If you told me in 13 years I'll be sitting here talking about fire suppression or just like my career or where it's at now, I would be like, yeah, right.
Did it eventually become a passion for you?
Yeah, like what changes did you have to make in your life and your mentality? Did you notice?
Yeah, that you accepted it,
complete this goal or to accomplish this goal and go through with it.
So I think when I first started the training, it didn't seem real. So when I got put on, like I said, I was forced into a program, and the funny thing about it was like I already knew about this program for a couple of years, right? So like one of my older homeboys actually worked at a nonprofit organization that dealt with like at-risk youth, and he would chase us all around the neighborhood, like, hey, join this fire program, and he had the brochures and he would show us, and mostly out of respect, we'd listen to what he had to say, but in the back of our minds, we're like, yeah, right. And like we didn't care because like realistically, at that age, I think I was probably like 17, 18 for sure, and he would chase us all down, and like to me, I was like, hearing the stories, if you went to fire camp or whatever, it was like Camp Snoopy, like you didn't want to be a part of that. And then like, it was more of like, I thought it was like a dropout program. You know what I mean? So when I got forced into it, I was like, I felt like a little bit of shame, kind of like, oh God, what am I doing? People are going to judge me. And like getting into it, it was like, okay, well.
You mean people that like you grew up with, right? Where you come from,
Yeah.
People are going to judge you?
So like realistically, my biggest fear, and like that's one thing I touch in because I work with a lot of kids, and oh, that sounds really bad, but so one thing that like I talk on a lot is like overcoming fear, because I do a lot of either at work or volunteer, but I work with a lot of at-risk youth and trying to steer them into fire suppression, like into fire jobs. But it's like overcoming obstacles is the biggest one is fear, right? Because you fear that. You fear the thought of no longer being accepted by your friends, homeboys, whatever you want to call them. It's that fear of challenge. It's that fear of change, because we're so used to being stuck in this little box, right? That, hey, we need to act a certain way, dress a certain way, be the same person, but we don't think that there's other options out there, right? So I think that was probably one of my biggest obstacles, was trying to maintain my name and this ego. But at the time, I think, 2012, what was minimum wage back then? Like $7? So I think the biggest thing is like, because when I went to this program, there was a bunch of dudes. Everybody had tattoos. Everybody had a history. Everybody had a story. Guys went to fire camp. Guys got in this program, right? So it was kind of standoffish. Like you get there and it's like, whoa, like, I don't like this dude's tattoos, or he doesn't like my tattoos. So you're like looking at each other like, and then they were talking about the whole orientation thing. We're like, okay, this is what you're going to be doing. And you're not really paying attention to anything, because you're watching this dude's tattoos. You're watching his demeanor, his attitude. Like, is he here for whatever reason, or is this fool trying to, slide later on? But as soon as I heard $21 an hour, I was like, whoa, what did he say? $21? Like, that was unreal. Like, making like 10, 15 bucks, you were a baller back then. But then 21 bucks is like, all right, let me hear what you got to say real quick. And kind of changed it a little bit. Like, all right, let me calm down. Let me act like an adult. And,
so you say it was money. That money kind of made you rethink at the time. Like, hey,
Yeah, I would say I think that was like the turning point to at least entertain the conversation. Like, okay, what is this guy talking about? $21. And then I had, at the time, my daughter was just turned 5. So I came home. It was funny because I came home, shaved my head, and I went to pick up my daughter from school. She was in kindergarten at the time. And the thought of like, well, I'm free now. I got a 5-year-old child. I'm no longer a kid. I've been on my own since 18. I mean, I've had a good support system from the family, right? But now I'm an adult. Like, where are you going to live? How are you going to support your child? So when you say 21 bucks, it's like, all right, let me see what's going on, But that was probably the biggest push for me to try getting into fire, and like just trying to maintain a level head of like, all right, you want to gangbang, you want to act an idiot, or do you want to sit back and make some money?
Some real money, actually.
At what age was this?
I think I was 23.
Oh, wow.
At that time, I was already 23. My daughter was 5, and like I said, it was like unreal, right? But a lot of times, it was cool because in this program, we'd get like folks who were like alumni, right? They either did the program or they contributed some way. And I remember like the individual, he was a battalion chief at the time, and I think like looking at him and him talking to us, that was probably like my turning point. Like, damn, this is cool. But dude had a big brocha, like talk like, "What's up, eh?" And like I was like, whoa, because obviously at the time, the career, the fire service was predominantly, you know, like clean cut, no record, like folks
Well,
with
that's
just
what you
proper.
envision,
Yeah, exactly. So when you think about like a fire station, you think about the fire service, you think of folks with great educations, good upbringing, great backgrounds, living
Just
in
like you see in the movies. Yeah.
exactly like
Yeah.
what you
White
see on
people.
Yeah.
TV. And so you don't think of people like us being in this career field or even being accepted, right? So when I see this dude come up with slick comb back hair, big posture, and the dude had his area tattooed on him. And it was cool because he didn't really get into details of his background as far as where he was like from, but it was more of the way he carried himself. He dropped clues, and like it was more of like a target audience towards the folks that look like me, right? So it was kind of like inspirational, inspiring,
Of course.
inspiring.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, dudes in the streets, went to YA, and I think I could be lying to you, I don't remember, but I'm sure he did a juvenile life sentence.
Wow.
And then he came home, got into fire, and then like get promoting in his career. And he actually left the agency that I work for right now, for the feds, and he actually became a captain at a inmate camp. He didn't like it as far as he was like babysitting, like corralling kittens. That's the way he explained it to us. And then he came back to the agency, and then he's promoted on up, and like it was pretty cool to see someone like, oh, dude's got the tattoos, he's got the talk, the walk, and accepting of us. You know what I mean? And he kind of like, without saying it, was like inviting us in.
He kind of set the bar for, you would say, like people like you, right?
Yeah, because I mean, even when I first started, right? So the program, it was a little scary at the time because they could only accept 40 applicants. But when you show up to your first PT, and that's like, you know, physical training, there was like 150 people, like no lie. And same story. A lot of dudes freshly came home, you know, they're in shape. Whatever they're doing on their off time, that's on them. But it was like, can I make it? Like, because most of the time growing up, it's like, okay, this guy, like, you get by, you know? There's not, like, you don't hear successions or success stories, or you really don't think highly of yourself because the system's already told you, like, oh, you're a failure, etc. But, like, when you're in a parking lot with 150 people all looking for a job and you know it's only 40, like, you got to shine. Like, it's game time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you make friends, you build relationships, but it's a competition for a job. And I got selected on the 40. That's only one step. Like, that one step was the physical training, like, okay, this guy's fast and he's strong. But then you think about, what's the next step? So you go to this base academy, right?
What made you outshine everybody? What effort did you put in that made you different from everybody else that you feel?
I think it was the fact that just came home. Mm-hmm. So, like, I came home, and embarrassing to say or not, I think I was like 260 when I went in. I came home 160. And
oh, wow, you lost 100 pounds.
I got really addicted to working out. And I don't know if it's my ego, but I just noticed the difference in my body structure. I noticed the difference in my physical performance. So it kind of like helped me out, right? But to keep in mind, it's like, how many folks really go on 6-mile runs, 8-mile runs?
Wow.
How many folks put 45 pounds on their back and then hike up a hill for like a mile, 2 miles, you know what I mean? And it's, at that time, it's training, so it's a race. Every time it's a race, you're always competing. But I think just how I was raised, outshine everybody. And then especially like on a. So I'm half Asian. So that was the hardest part, like growing up in the Northeast, is find that acceptance, right? And it's like that in every neighborhood, especially for folks that are not predominantly or fully Mexican. You got to find that acceptance. You got to find that balance. You got to push harder. So I always had to outshine everybody because I'm Asian. You get the jokes here and there, oh, Chino, blah, blah, blah. You get the Icelandic thing. Can you see? Can you drive? So that was like, I smash everybody out here. And I think the biggest thing was just trying to get that job. $21, it's.
So basically, you were always ready to outshine everybody due to already your growing up the way that people always expected. Like, you were kind of put, not in the back burner, I guess, but, you know, you always had to try harder to kind of prove yourself, basically. So it was already in you, basically, too.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's that thought of, and I say this and like, not to offend people, but what you want to do? You want to be a forklift driver and make $9 an hour, or do you want to make $21 and then gain a career and then make more off that? You know what I mean? Because, like I tell a lot of people now, where you start at is not where you're gonna finish. Like, you obviously got to start somewhere. You start at the bottom and you got to build it, right? Whether that's outshining folks, promoting, getting qualifications, and getting higher positions, and then making more money. And realistically, if you can't keep up physically in this job or mentally, like, you're not meant for it. But that was probably the biggest thing.
Besides always being in competition when it came to the job, what are some other challenges that you can say you came across during your journey?
So I think it's trying to find that balance between the home life and trying to get this professional aspect or this professional life, because like I said, it's even that, like for people like me at first, if you don't have that support system, if you don't have somebody mentoring you on the way, you're going to get discouraged. Like, I was honestly at the point where it's like, I don't want to do this. And it took a lot out of me, because you go home, right? You're done working out. You're done doing your classroom training, whatever, and you still live in the hood. You still got your friends. You still got the folks who don't like you. So you still got to be on your toes. And then depending on, like, your activities, right? So I'm a firm believer of you create your own environment, right? So if you have a positive mindset and stick around positive people, good things are going to happen. You start slipping, thinking negative and doing negative stuff, hanging with negative folks, well, you already know. But finding that balance of, do I want to continue forth and do some dumb shit, or do I want to keep on doing what I'm doing and try and make some money?
How did you find that balance? What did you finally decide? When did you come to the conclusion when you were like, was it something that sparked in you, or was it just a process?
I think the spark was there. It just took me a minute to realize, because, so like, I got selected, right? And I think the first year that I got on, so just to back up a second, is when I started, it was on an on-call crew. We call them AD crews, administratively decided, right? So you're not a permanent employee, you're not a seasonal, you don't get health benefits, etc. We still have these programs, and I'm a big advocate on those, because it's a good stepping stone, to get experience, make some money, meet some people, start networking where they want to hire you. But I had to relate the job to my life, right? So we got fortunate. My first year, we ended up in Washington. We went to the Wenatchee complex out in Wenatchee, like pretty much at the border of Canada. And then we ended up in Colorado Springs, on the Wallow Canyon fire. And we got sent out to a fire in Laramie, Wyoming.
Wow.
Like, what? Wyoming, Washington, Colorado, like places I've never been, right? But the one that got me the most, because even though I was in this great physical shape, it didn't really prepare me for the job. So like when I went to Washington, steep, rugged terrain, high elevation, obviously it's going to take time for you to adjust to the elevation, which is going to make you winded and tired.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even though I was in great shape and thought I was, actually we started hiking up a hill, and I was running a chainsaw all the time. And like, I was so excited to be working. So I was running a chainsaw, not realizing I wasn't drinking water, too excited. Went maybe 3 hours into the shift, and then it was like, all right, gear up, like, get in line. We're moving on up. So then we started hiking out. Maybe 15, 20 minutes, I started feeling it. Like, what the heck's going on? And they pulled me out, like, come here. It was like one of the most embarrassing feelings I ever had. And like, I use this a lot as like a motivational drive. But I was on the verge of going down. We call that like TU, like when you can't physically perform the job anymore and you're about to drop. Like you're physically just going to shut down and that's it. And now that I'm in my career field, we kind of identify these things now beforehand, because a lot of times when guys go TU or they drop, it's a medical situation. So these guys had seen the symptoms, the signs of fatigue, dehydration, and pulled me out the side. Hey, drop your chainsaw. And I was super embarrassed, like, nah, I got it. And I didn't understand, like, nah, because my ego was like, I got this. They pulled me out, and they were like, hey, we need you to drink some water, slow sips, and let us know when you take a piss. I was like, the fuck? Take a piss? Like, probably drank like 2 quarts of water. It took me like 2 hours to pee. I finally took a piss, and it was like shrinkles, and it fucking was orange. Like, I was done. But I wanted to quit, right? But I didn't want to quit at the time because it's like, this fool's gonna think I'm weak, like I'm fucking punking out, like, nah. But then subconsciously, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I can't do this. And you get that feeling to this day. Like, you go to a fire, and usually they're 14-day assignments, right? So it's like you go on a fire, and you get your ass kicked. If you're really actively working, you get your ass kicked. It doesn't matter if you're in the best shape of your life or whatever. But it's that thought process, like, I survived this. So I want the next fire, right? So I went to the first fire season. It was on call. I hit like 3 or 4 fires. I made some money, which was kind of shocking. Like, there were some decent checks at the time. And I didn't want to do it. But as soon as the fire season was over, I'm like, it's not that bad. And I kind of related it towards the adrenaline, like being on the streets. That paranoid feeling that you get when it's like 2 a.m. and you're surrounded by your homeboys and you see all these suspicious cars and you're like, who's that? Who's that? Passed by too many times.
So you utilize it in a positive way, in a different direction.
You just got to transfer those emotions, the adrenaline, the anger, the fear, all that in a different form.
For a new cause.
Yeah, think of it like you've got 4-foot flames. It's hot. You don't know as far as we're going to construct hand line, and is it going to cross? Is it going to get close to us? Are we going to get cut off? Are we in danger? So that thrill of like that rush of danger, you just transfer it from street life to this. And like I tell this to people all the time, like everything that you're doing on the street, you have no clue. These are the same actions in a positive way that you'd be doing in fire and getting paid and staying out of trouble. So I think that was probably the driving force that made me, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
What would you say is the hardest fire that you've had to work?
Is there one where you almost
Like one that you
lost your life
remember?
or something?
Yeah.
So it's been 13 years, so I feel like everything's been a mush. So I can't say like, oh, this has been the hardest fire or this has been the most dangerous situation. All I could say is
A memorable one? Maybe something that happened out of the ordinary or something you can never forget. Maybe something that stuck out of the rest.
I feel like there's too many.
Oh, wow.
Because if I sit here and tell you every single story about the dangers that you face, the fun that you have, the money that you make, the places that you go, I'd be here all night. But I'd say for this year, we're still in fire season. We're at 1,300 hours of overtime. So like my body's tired, but even this year's been pretty active as far as I can't even talk right now. This year's actually been pretty significant as far as the fire activity we've seen. But it's just trying to like figure out that balance of keep on going. Kind of has nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now, but as far as like what's been like the most challenging or like fire that has stick out of my head, there's been too many. I mean, you faced dangerous situations, rugged terrains. We do this thing called spike out, where there's no road access. You can't hike in, it's too far. So we got to take helicopter rides, get stuck on a mountain for 7-8 days. They usually tell you you'll be out there 3 days and we'll fly you back out. And it does not happen. But there's been too many throughout the years of folks dying on the fire line.
What is a proud moment that you would say stands out in your career so far?
I'd say a proud moment, at least for me, like where I measure success and a proud moment is like getting into, like I was talking about the AD crews, right? So when I first got on the on-call crews, the way it runs is you're on this little program, right? It's like a third-person party. So it's ran this little program, but in order for you to get certified to fight fire and actually fight fire, and you make it to these what they're calling academies, is you get a cadre, right? So these are full-time paid employees, and they do all the lessons plans, right? So a lot of times it's like it's a mix between folks that are supportive and folks that are just kind of like, you're one of those type. But the proudest moment I think I had is I set a goal. Like when I was in that program, I was like, how cool is that to sit here and teach, like, to teach folks like introduction to fire, to take them out on fires. So the proudest moment, the goal that I had set for myself was one day I'm going to take over that program. Later on, I got invited to help out. Like, hey, we need extra bodies. You want to come and help teach? You know, teach the NWCG courses, the basic fire, you know, I-180, 130, and 280, or the 230. But anyways, they pretty much told me to teach, like, the basic fire classes, and I was super excited. Like, oh, cool, I got to do it. Because I got to teach the crew that I came from. At the time, I was already a permanent employee. I got hired on. But I got the opportunity to teach, and I got invited back. Like, hey, you did a great job, field exercises on the classroom portion. It started with me just helping somebody with the unit. So the next day I got my own unit. Started with me like helping somebody with the unit. And then to the next year that I get to teach my own units. And then at one point where I get to teach the whole thing. And then I got certified on an M410 course is what we do at work for a facilitated learning instructor. So I got certified on that. So now I teach fire classes. And I do get to teach the crew that I came from. So I take pride in that. And I also get to take AD crews out as a crew boss, is what we call. You would kind of say it's not equivalent, but in an AD realm, you need a qualified crew boss, which would be like considered the captain of that crew. So I've been taking out those crews for a couple of years.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great accomplishment. What would you say to someone that is thinking about joining the Hot Shots?
I would say that it's a good goal to have, but it's only one goal. Like, the hardest part is getting on a hotshot crew, and actually throughout the years, it's not as hard as it used to be, but there's all kinds of different ways of fighting fire. So, like, our job is wildland fire. So we do brush fires, we do forest fires, but we have a bunch of different units as far as we have our own engines. They're not the big red trucks, they're smaller, Type 3 engines. So we have engine modules, we have hotshot crews. We actually have Type 2 initial attack crews. We have heli-attack crews, where those folks fly into a fire. Helicopter lands, the dudes get on out and they get to work. And then we have our smoke jumpers, which they actually, plane flies over and dudes parachute out. And then we have rappel crews. So helicopter hovers over the fire about 200 feet, and these guys rappel down on ropes and they go to work. So there's a bunch of different ones. But it seems like hotshot crews is the most desirable because we are considered the most elite. So everybody wants to be, I want to be a badass. I'm going to go for a shot crew. Great goal, but don't leave your eggs in one basket. Branch out and apply for the jobs.
Perfect. What resources, tips, or advice would you give to someone that maybe needs to be pointed in the right direction of how to start their career fighting fires?
So that's a good question. I've been assisting with like the recruitment efforts. I do a lot of it volunteer, like off the clock on my own time. So we always try to tell folks, you got all kinds of different options, but folks don't know these things because we're not out there sharing the message. We need to be doing better at recruiting, right? And especially in the hood. When you get a kid from Boyle Heights who, I see fire trucks, that's cool, and don't realize that they have programs in Boyle Heights that can help them. Like one of the AD programs is actually out of Boyle Heights, but you would never know that, right? Until somebody actively recruits you or gets you this information, or someone's already been on the program. But there is opportunities for a lot of folks as far as we have these on-call crews. We actually have 5 on the home unit that I'm on. We're out here out of the Angeles. So we have 5 crews, and 2 of them are community-based, means they're supported by a local council, a city council, and they're supplied, or they're supported with a facility where they can get together and they do the training. Folks don't know that, so that's an option.
We'll definitely put some information on a link for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing, like I'm an advocate for right now, is I wish I knew this at the time, but we actually have an Explorer post.
Oh.
So no clue about this when I was younger, and like if I knew this now, I would probably be sitting at a higher position now, like as far as promotional wise. I'd be a captain or a battalion if I knew about fire when I was 16. So
That's
our
great.
Explorer program, we got 3 locations, and the closest one in LA would be in Sylmar, but it's a program for kids 16 to 21.
What's the program called?
It's actually post 99,
Okay.
and I'll get you all the info on that. But
Yeah.
that program, it has a pretty good success rate as far as we get kids introduced into fire at 16, and depending on how long they stick with the program and if they're dedicated to wildland, there's an opportunity for employment. Because it's not only just physical training and yelling at kids, or it's not only physical training and classroom stuff. They also do like a lot of mentoring, and as far as, hey, we're going to teach you guys how to build resumes. We're going to show you guys how to build resumes. We're going to show you guys how to apply. And at this time, they're explorers, right? We're already meeting people. So there's stations that are like, hey, I want that kid. He's strong.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah.
So kind of like recruiters, they watch how they work, or how is that?
So the good thing about, I would speak on behalf of the Explorer program we have, is most of the advisors are ex-explorers. These guys are full-time employees, hot shots or engines, wherever they land in their career. But they are training these kids in that mentoring ship and keep an eye on them. So they're developing these kids, not only like in the program, but on their own time. You know, because a lot of times folks, they get scared. Like, oh, like these guys are hot shots or on an engine, or they're firefighters, right? I don't want to bother them. But when you see potential, especially in the youth, we try our best to like, hey, you guys need anything, call myself. Hit me up on my email. Which is actually funny because I was at the gym one time and I was working out, right? Headphones on, took like 3 scoops of pre-workout. I was raging. And I see this kid like, and I'm like, what does he want? What's up? And he's like, I'm sorry to bother you. And I guess he recognized me on my Instagram.
Oh wow.
So he asked me like my Instagram handle, right? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, I'm sorry to bother you. Super polite, respectful kid. But he's like, I'm sorry to bother you. I just graduated from high school, and he actually went to the school my daughter went to. So he's from the area. He's from the Northeast. And his approach was super professional, super mature. And he's like, hey, I just got out of high school. I'm looking into fire. I'm involved in this program. Do you have any tips? Or do you have any like suggestions? I don't want to bother you. And we had a small conversation. Keep in mind, I'm raged out on pre-workout. So I gave him my information. Like, hey, man, here's my phone number. Give me a call later. Or text me. And then send me your resume. So he ended up texting me back, sent me his resume, took a look at it, gave him some points and tips. And then I gave him some other resources as far as RAD programs. I gave him the links to applying for a permanent position. And this was last year. The kid was on it. Kept on contacting me, hey, what do I do about this? And he actually got hired on the engine, and he's been working with us for like this whole year. So now he's a permanent full-time employee, 19 or 20 years old now, and he's working on benefits and et cetera.
Wow.
But it's just that thing, like having people like in a mentor role, like people that are willing to help you. And like the biggest drive was, I like that the kid came at me professionally, came at me mature, but what drove me to help this kid is from the neighborhood. Like, no affiliation, but he's from my neighborhood. Like, this is our local youth in Northeast LA. So why not provide this kid an opportunity when he's chasing it, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when he's so hungry for it, because a lot of the times what we see is people that have the tools, but they don't know what to do with them, or they don't use them, you know, and they don't apply them. So then their dreams don't become a reality, for example. And I think that's the good thing about these kids or these youth having you guys as mentors, is that they get that push that they need, you know?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, I tell a lot of my folks, especially like I said, we do a lot of volunteer work. Me and a couple of guys that I work with, and I work with these dudes. They're dedicated to work, hard workers, but they understand it. Like I got guys that work with us who are from the Northeast too. So we do a lot of volunteer work, and it's not necessarily like we want to create a good work atmosphere. We want to recruit younger folks because these are the kids who are going to work for us one day. But the biggest push is these are kids from our neighborhood. Like, are we going to see these kids on the news? Are we going to see them a victim, a suspect? Or are we going to see these kids on a fire line pushing, making money? You know what I mean? It's like the desire to help them is because we see ourselves in them. You know what I mean? That's probably like one of the biggest things.
That's deep too, because it's like you rather see these kids move up on the fire line than to be on a white chalk line on the sidewalk somewhere. And it's I feel like it's relatable to where we come from. Like, you know, I would rather help this kid do something positive, or else I'm just gonna watch him use his energy another way and then end up either prison, jail, or, you know, never ends well.
Yeah, and I just had this conversation with my buddy. Is like, these kids who are 18, 19 years old, and especially like right now, like my daughter just graduated from high school. She's in college, right? She's 17. She'll be 18 in like 6 days.
Congratulations. That's a big accomplishment as a father, that
Yeah.
you know you got to raise your child to the point where she sees her future in college too.
Yeah, thank you. And but the biggest push that I'm seeing right now, the biggest like heartbreaking like emotion really, is that a lot of these kids that her age, college ain't meant for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's one thing that we got to stop. I mean, don't get me wrong. Education is a great tool. Gain a degree, get a promising career, but realistically, like, that's not meant for everyone.
And we can't push it on our kids because it's not. Sometimes it's
No.
not for them.
And a lot of times when you push that onto them and they see like, oh, I'm being forced to do something, they're doing something they're not passionate about. They're doing something just to please their parents. You know what I mean? And then they end up doing this whole like, oh, I got a degree in this, something I don't care about.
And
but
they're
now
unhappy, and then they end up not even working in that.
yeah, and then they end up owing like $60,000
In a student loan.
in student loans.
Yeah.
But like, we don't tell these kids they have other options, you know, because we're not getting it out there. But I think like the drive right now on the projects that I'm working on currently is that like I said, my daughter's, her friends her age are now bored. They don't want to go to college. Good kids now getting in trouble with the law. And it's like, if we can use our platforms, use our positions, and help our communities, and even just one kid getting them introduced to fire, you potentially saved one kid from being a victim or one kid being a suspect.
Yeah.
And then it's it's a returning cycle, right? Because you provide an opportunity to someone in your neighborhood, they become a success. They lose that fear of, oh, I'm not going to be accepted by my friends. But now they're traveling, they're making money, they got new cars, and it just drives their friends like, man, what are you doing? Like, I want that too. And not only that, it's like now they can go in future generations where they go into the schools, the high schools, the junior highs, and start talking to kids, and they become role models. And they, most of the time, these kids don't even know that by the age of 19, 20 years old and on a fire line, they're just putting in work. But they don't know that there's kids younger than them like, I want that.
I really like how you said that. Giving kids other options. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
true.
because he's right. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes college isn't for everybody, and being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever isn't for everybody. And sometimes we need to find other things that work for us. You know,
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
everything
this-
isn't for everybody.
I think also too, within our society, the way that we grow up, we feel that education is the only way out, and that's why a lot of us fail, because we feel that that's the only. But there is
Education, but you have to, again, education is the tool.
Yeah.
But you have to apply the work, you know, to get the results that you want.
And what I tell a lot of the kids, right? Because I just got done with a buddy of mine started, he has a nonprofit. So he started a nonprofit out in Compton. South Central, Watts area, and it's open to the public, and it's really not just kids. Like there's adults in these programs, and it's like an introduction to fire, right? And he's providing these opportunities for these folks to learn it and where they can apply the skills that they learn with him to actually gain jobs. But I just lost the train of thought what I was about to say right now.
So aside from fighting fires, is there anything else that you are trying to accomplish?
To be honest with you, I think fire has been the passion, and it kind of correlates to like. So fire has been my primary, like, career goal, right? Obviously, I want to promote, but obviously, I'm going to retire one day. I'm actually 15 years from retiring, at my earliest convenience. But I think the community work that I do, like volunteering, like the mentorships, going to schools, talking to kids about fire, talking to kids about fire, even other jobs that are unrelated to fire, just the whole like, you don't need, not that you don't need, but don't be discouraged of not having an education. You can find your own. It's 2024. There's so many ways to make money now, as far as, especially legal, as far as like, look at the podcast. I mean, you get the right topics, you get the right people, and boom, you're skyrocketing reviews, right? Now you're getting paid for stuff. But I think for myself, I probably will go back to school, just to like, probably at the lowest, probably get a bachelor's degree in psychology, because I think my biggest drive, not only is fire, is working with kids. And working with kids is probably like one of my biggest passions, because when you can provide them an opportunity, obviously, they succeed, right? But just that, the idea to me of growing up in a certain area, growing up a certain way, and then contributing back to your community. Because even we hear it all the time, right? Your favorite rappers, all these fools.
And
right?
you're changing the course of people's lives. Because, you know, like, for example, they say, like, we repeat history or we follow our fathers or mothers' footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's like some of these, or a lot of these people are creating a new path and another path for maybe their kids or their next generations. Or, you know, maybe they're the only ones in their family that have made a new path and everyone's not doing the same thing. And I think that that's important.
No, I agree with you on that. And then, like, because especially working with youth, think about how many kids come from single-parent households. Not just a mother or a father, right? But we all know that struggle of stepping into the parenting role. Whether you have younger siblings or you got to help pay bills. Like, when I talked with my buddy, with the folks over there, like, I was talking to some of his clients or his kids, and college isn't the route for them, right? And it's only because they don't have the time. Because they need to help pay bills, they need to watch siblings. But gaining an opportunity in fire, and I try to tell a lot of the folks, is like, imagine you out there working, how much you can contribute back to your household. Not only are you doing it financially and supportive as like assisting the family, but that mental, not only are you helping assist the family financially, but you're also helping your younger generations to thrive for something else. Like, man, he's doing it, I want to do it.
Set the bar.
You set the bar, and then kids succeed.
Thank you so much for coming out today and letting us interview you.
Is there any way anybody can contact you for any further resources or information?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I will give you guys a couple of the links as far as the programs that we have and a couple of the emails. But, like, I would say don't be afraid. Like, reach out. And if it's not me, or if you know somebody in fire, reach out. But my IG handle is kingleo_57. I don't have an official, like, fire recruitment email or Instagram. But, I mean, if that's the way that you need to reach out, like, looking for resources for yourself, resources for your kids, that I'm more than willing to help you out in that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo.